welcomed by two guests from CANEGROWERS. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name's Matt Keeley. I do membership engagement and innovation at CANEGROWERS.
And I'm Shikira Kalatsis, and I'm the education coordinator here at CANEGROWERS.
So you guys are joining us today to talk about the Sweeten the Crop project. We came up with an idea for this project for Moonhack because we want to focus on some of the agriculture industries in Australia and what they are doing to help us mitigate climate change.
I'm so glad to be part of the Moonhack challenge this year. I think it's something that we as an agricultural industry really would like kids and the general public to understand about some of the practices that we do have on farm to mitigate climate change or help the environment in so many different ways.
And ag technology is really coming to the fore in sugarcane industry, but also across agriculture. So there's so many avenues to use code and technology for our industry, not just growing plants, but maintaining drones or looking at sensors or computers in tractors and GPS and control traffic. So many things use this technology.
It touches everywhere, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
So our Sweeten the Crop project really focuses on how we engage with technology to grow a crop across a year. So can you share with us how farmers actually do this on their farm?
So the Queensland cane industry grows around about 30 to 32 million tonnes of sugarcane every year, and we grow it along 2,100 kilometres of coastline from Mossman, the top of Queensland, all the way down to northern New South Wales. And so we have different climate zones, but one of the big areas we grow sugarcane in is in the Burdekin region near Townsville. And that is the sort of the dry tropics region, and they use a lot of irrigation. They have 300 days of sunlight, so they grow a lot of cane and really big cane, but they use irrigation water. So the challenge for those growers there to maintain their environment outcomes and make sure they're sustainable and profitable is how they use that irrigation water really effectively and efficiently, because electricity is expensive. They pay for water, and they want to make sure the water grows the biggest crop they can possibly grow. But they also want to make sure they're not impacting the environment too much. The practices that they use are best practices to support their farm, but also reduces that impact on environment, water runoff, but also has some impacts on climate change too. So that's part of what we're thinking with this project, is how does the farmer make sure he uses the best water and the most efficient use of water on farm.
Awesome. And we've managed to turn that into a clicker style project, which is something that we all love to play. Let's get started on our project. So I've clicked on the starter hyperlink from the project page. Because I'm logged into my account, I'm going to click the Remix button. If you're not logged into account, simply click on See Inside to begin. Once I'm in here, I'm going to rename my project so that I can remember what it is that I'm creating, and I'm ready to begin. I can see that we've got 6 different sprites on the screen that will all have some code attached to them. Our farmer's going to help guide the story, and we will attach our control structures to him. The water button is the clicker in our project that will control the farmer irrigating the crop. We've got the rain that we're going to code to come in at random times and impact the water level. We have some water that's going to represent flooded and waterlogged roots. We've got our cane, and we've got our dead cane that if we don't give it enough water, or we give it too much water, our cane won't survive. Let's start with our farmer. We're going to start with the event when the green flag is clicked. And we're going to begin by setting some variables that are going to control parts of our game. Let's start by making our first variable that we're going to call centimetres. We want to be able to track the growth of our cane over time, seeing if we can get the best result possible. We're going to start our centimetre growth at 40 centimetres. Create a second variable that we're going to call months. A nice crop will take approximately 12 months to grow. Let's set our months starting at 0. So we're going to track how many months it takes to get our cane to the perfect height. The third variable, which is our most important one, is the water level. The water level is going to show how much water is in the ground for the cane to be using to grow. Let's set our water level, and it's going to start at 0 as well. Now, our little tabs up on the screen, you can move them around to where you would like them to be. I'm going to pop mine over to the other side of the screen near the clicker button so that the player can see them easily. Where the water level is one of our most important ones, so let's start by setting its controls. We want this to happen forever throughout the game, so we'll add in a forever block. We are going to wait 5 seconds. Whoops, pop that in the wrong spot. Put it inside the forever control loop. We're going to wait 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds, we're going to get our water level to change by -1. So this is mimicking the cane using the water in the ground to help it to grow. Next one we want to do, we're going to add a control structure to change the months of the year. Let's start with another green flag event. And it's actually fairly similar to this final block of code here. So I'm going to duplicate that and drop it onto this one. With our months, we're going to wait 10.5 seconds for a month to go by. And once a month, the 10 seconds is gone, the month we're going to change by 1. So it's going to slowly go up in months. Ideally, we'd have our cane at the perfect size at the end of 12 months. Sometimes it takes a bit longer or a shorter amount of time to get that, depending on the weather conditions and the water levels, but approximately 12 is what we're aiming for. Now we're going to get our farmer to introduce the game and to be able to give our player a little bit of hints about how to play it effectively. Let's start with another green flag event. And our farmer is going to introduce by saying some things to the player. Now, here's where you can innovate and adapt on your project. You might choose a sound block and record your voice. You might do a text to speech, so it speaks it out loud. Whatever you would like to do, you can do it, but we need to be able to give our players some instructions. So the first one, we're going to say, welcome to my sugar farm. Can you help me grow the sugarcane? Question mark. And we'll change that to 3 seconds. We're going to need a little bit longer to read that much text. Let's drag over a second block. This one is going to say a hint. Keep the water level between 1 and 2 for best growth. One more say block dropped across. Keep an eye out for rain. So farmers on the actual farm would be able to use weather prediction tools and data to be able to look out for rain. Our players won't have that though. It's just going to come randomly for them. Underneath here, we're now going to set the controls for what happens when the water level reaches certain numbers. Let's drag in a forever block because we do want these control structures to go throughout the entire project. Let's start with our first one, add in an if-then block. So over here we have our water level and we're going to attach these conditions to that variable. We're going to need an operator. So let's drag across one with an equals sign first and go grab the input from our variable water levels. I'm going to start with when the water level reaches 3. When this happens, our farmer is going to give the player a hint, and he's going to say, the cane has too much water, indicating stop clicking that button. It's getting too wet for the cane. In our game, player's probably going to keep clicking the button. So we're going to set 2 more conditions that sit around the water level if they keep clicking. Again, let's keep it simple for ourselves. Let's duplicate this block, if then block, and drop it underneath. Okay. If the water level equals 5, so they've clicked it again, or perhaps the rain has come and impacted, we're going to get the farmer to say the cane roots are getting too wet, which will slow its growth. When it gets to this point in time, we actually are going to engage the water sprite to come in. To let it know that it is its turn to start, we're going to use a broadcast here. So drop a broadcast in and add a new one that's called waterlogged. Okay. So if it reaches, this water level reaches 5, the farmer's going to talk and we will send that broadcast, and soon in the project, we'll get the water to respond to that broadcast. Okay, it's possible now that our players keep clicking the water button, even though the soil is too wet. Let's duplicate our if then again. And this time, we're actually going to swap out the operator and let's put in a more than operator. We'll bring our water level variable back over and we'll change that to the number 10. So if the water level gets more than 10, the text from the farmer is going to say, the cane is waterlogged and can't survive. If this is the case, our cane is going to die. So let's create a new broadcast of dead. And this broadcast will be used by the sugarcane here to disappear and the dead cane to come up on the screen. And we'll code those a little bit later. We've coded the conditions if there's too much water, but what about when there's not enough water? Well, let's do them now. Let's duplicate our code block again, put most of our conditions in. This time, we want to swap out the more than operator for a less than operator. So the water level, if it drops down into the negative numbers because there's not enough, let's do -3. We're going to say there isn't enough water for the cane to grow. We don't need a broadcast here. It's just a warning, a bit like our first one before. Okay, let's duplicate our block one more time. Okay. If our water level is more than -5, so we've continued not to grow it, perhaps we've walked away to get a snack, forgotten our game, we're going to say the cane can't survive without water. And we need to add a broadcast in here. Our cane has died off, so let's select the broadcast of dead. Just like if we waterlog our cane, if we don't give it any water at all, it's not going to survive. Time now to code our clicker. Select the button sprite that's got the word water written on it. This is as if the farmer is turning on the tap and irrigating his crop. We're going to start with the event when this sprite is clicked. If this happens, firstly, we're going to send a broadcast. We need to create a new one that's called water. This one is going to do a couple of things. It's going to be linked to the cane to tell it how to grow. We also want to change the variable of water level. Every time they click on the water, we're going to change the water level by 2, indicating that we've substantially added water to the crop. Let's test it out. Got our farmer who's going to talk to us. What I'm interested in is this water level. Oh, look, it's dropped to -1 already, so it's doing what it needs to. And if I click on it, it's jumping by 2 every time. Awesome. Oh, my cane roots are getting too wet, which will slow its growth. Great to see that my code is working. Our sugarcane is the next sprite that we're going to code. So let's click the sprite cane, and we're going to start with the event when the green flag is clicked. The first thing we're going to do is to have the cane show up on the screen. There are times when this cane will be hidden because the cane has died, so we want to ensure it shows on the screen. We're also going to set its starting position at -160, -160. And we're going to set the size of the cane to 10%. So remember, when we're coding this block, this is a percentage size of the sprite. So 10% of its actual size. It's starting small. We're going to set some controls in place. So let's add a forever block to have this happen forever throughout the project. And we're going to add in an if, then, else block. This is a branching statement which could have 2 possible outcomes. And we're going to link these outcomes to the size of the sprite. Let's add in an operator that is a less than. And if the size, let's get the size input from the looks menu. If the size is less than 120% of the actual sprite size, this is when we need the cane to grow. So we're going to get it to wait 1 second, and it's going to change its size by 0.5. So a very small change in the size of the percentage after a second. And on the screen for our player, we want the variable of centimeters to change by 1.5. So this centimeter is kind of a bit of make-believe. We're not linking it exactly to the percentage size of the sprite. We're aiming to get it as a realistic height of the finished height of cane when it does actually grow. So 120% of the size of the sprite will be quite large on the screen. If it's reached 120 or it's more than 120, we want to stop it from growing. So we're going to put here, change the size by 0. We don't want anything else to happen. We can test out our sprite to see if this block of code is going to work. We will have our farmer talk first. I can see my cane in the background here. I'm going to move my farmer just a little bit. It is slowly growing. Remember, we had wait 1 second and it will grow a little bit bigger. I can see it slowly getting bigger over time. Jump back to my cane sprite. Okay. Continuing on the cane sprite, remember we said that it's going to be linked to some of those broadcasts. So let's code it to what to do if it receives that broadcast. We'll start off with when I receive dead. If the sprite receives dead, we need the healthy cane to hide, and we're going to tell it to stop all code scripts from running. We also need to code our cane to what it's going to do when it receives water. Remember, this is the broadcast that our water button sends every time that somebody clicks on it. When I receive water, we're going to duplicate this if-then block. Don't duplicate the forever because we don't want it to go forever. We only want it to happen when the water sprite is clicked and it sends that broadcast. So if it's less than 120, we're going to change the size by 2% of the sprite. We do not want that wait button anymore, so let's delete that. And the change of centimetre of the variable, I'm going to change it by 7. So we're saying when we make a choice to water the crop, it's going to help it to have that growth. So you can test that code out now. I can see my little sprite in the background. It's slowly going, and if I am to click water, it substantially grows very quickly. However, I'm seeing that water level rise, and that's going to be a problem for my crop. We don't want just one sugarcane row to grow. We want multiple rows. We want to fill up our block of land. Let's duplicate our sprite so that we now have a second one. So we need to change a little bit of code within this sprite to make it run effectively. First of all, we need to change its location. We're going to move it to -80 on the x-axis, which means it's going to come a little bit to the right of the other one. What we're also going to do is to remove these variable blocks. We don't want every sprite to affect the variable, just that first one. Now that we've got that, let's duplicate this cane again. We're going to change the x-axis to 0. Duplicate again, so we've got 4 rows, and we'll choose to make x 80 and duplicate one more time, and this x-axis will be 160. And if you are to test your code now, they're not going to end up in the air like these ones, but they're going to be 5 rows planted across. Last little bit that we're going to add onto our cane is what to do when it reaches its full potential height. So one more, when the green flag is clicked, you can add this to any of the cane sprites. It doesn't matter which one. We're going to drop in a forever control. We want the program to be testing for this all the time to make sure it's there. Then drag across an if-then block. Now we're going to build a complex operator here. So drop across an or block. We're going to drop across an equals one and put it on the left, and a more than and put it on the right. It doesn't matter either side, it's quite okay. We are going to attach the input of size on both sides. So as soon as the size of our sugarcane reaches 120, we want this to take place, or if it gets to more than 120. The more than needs to be there because if somebody's watering the crop or the rain comes and the sprite size is at 119% and it jumps to 121 or it jumps to 126, we need that to take place as well. We're going to create a new broadcast and we are going to call that one harvest, and we're going to get the farmer to respond to harvest. Once it's done that, let's wait for a few seconds. We want some things to be able to react on the screen. Then we're going to send another broadcast on, we're going to call it stop all. Here's where we are going to tell any sprites that are actively making changes in the program that they're going to stop doing everything. And let's add a stop all function down the bottom of that as well. Go back to our farmer sprite. We're going to add in what he is going to do when he gets that broadcast of stop all. So when I receive stop all, we need the control function to stop other scripts in the sprite. This also needs to have an effect on the button sprite. So let's drag and drop that onto our button. And we also need that to happen for the rain. So drag and drop that over to the rain. Just going to double check. Yep, it's received that and it has received that. We're up to coding our sprite rain. Let's click on the rain sprite. So we've just copied that one bit of code across, so that's there. Let's start with the if event with the green flag. And at the very beginning, we need this sprite to hide. We don't want the rain to be on screen, but we are going to choose some random times for it to come. Let's start with, once again, our forever, because we want this to continually happen throughout the project. We're going to ask the rain sprite to wait. Let's pick random, and we're going to pick a random time between 15 and 40 seconds. And when it does happen, we're going to get this sprite to show on the screen. And if I click my little show button here, I can see what that will look like when it comes on. Let's hide it back away. When it does come on screen, we need the rain to have an impact on that water level variable. So drag across, change water level, and we're going to change that water level by 2. Then we're going to ask it to wait 2 seconds before it hides away again and it disappears. And then it will go back and it will wait another random chunk of time and repeat that code block. So it's going to come at an unknown time and have an impact on the water level. When we were coding earlier, we sent a broadcast of water or waterlogged. It's time now to go to our water sprite and add in some conditions for it to run. Let's start with the event with our green flag, and we're going to set its starting position to 3530. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now. X35 and Y30 will kind of put it up above the middle of the project, but it's not there. If I click on show, it's down the very bottom. Let's have a look why. If I drop to the costumes tab, I can see that the sprite itself is built down the bottom of the screen and the center of the sprite is here. So when I'm creating my X and Y coordinates, it's linked to this middle sprite, and I've deliberately got my water down the bottom of the screen. So that's why that might feel a little bit weird. When the green flag is clicked, we need to have this sprite hidden away off the screen. So we said that this sprite is responding to the broadcast of waterlogged. When it receives that waterlogged, that's the time for it to show on screen. We're going to link what it's doing and how long it stays on screen before it hides to the water level. And we need it to continually check for this condition throughout the project. So we need that forever block and then an if then block. We'll jump back to our operator and grab a less than, and in our variables, grab that water level again. So if the water level is less than 4, it's time for it to hide away again. So our condition that we linked with the farmer, if the water level got to 5, waterlogged would be sent. So as soon as it hits 5, we've got that water coming up on screen. If the player keeps clicking, that water will stay on the screen representing it's waterlogged. But as soon as the water drops down, the sugarcane's been using it and it's less than 4, it's going to disappear. You can test that out now and see if it's working. Time now to code our dead sugarcane. That's pretty sad, isn't it? Our dead cane is going to show up at those end conditions where there's far too much water or not enough water for it to survive. Let's start with the green flag event because it needs to know what to do at the very beginning. So when the green flag is clicked, this sprite hides away. And just like the other cane sprites, we need to code its starting position. So let's do -180 or 160, sorry, and -110, the same as the cane sprite. And we are going to set its size to 60%. Now the time for it to come on screen is when it receives that broadcast of dead. So when I receive dead, it's time for it to show on screen. We don't have to add any other code to our cane sprite because it doesn't do anything. It just shows up showing that our cane has died. But we do need to have an equal number of dead cane to the live cane. So let's duplicate that. And once again, we're going to change the x-axis to -80. Duplicate another one, and the x-axis is 0. Duplicate another, and the x-axis is 80. And duplicate one more time, and the x-axis is 160. If you are to test your code now, and we can force the cane to die by changing the level to far too much, once our farmer stops speaking, I can see that my cane has died, so my code has worked. There's one last step in our project, and it is an optional extra if you would like to do it. And this one is about making the screen look like it's going through day and night. This code is attached to our backdrop or our stage. So you can attach code here. It creates its own page. You'll notice that lots of the blocks have gone missing because we can't have motion with this, but there are some things that we can add here. I'm going to start with a green flag event. And again, we want this to happen throughout the project, so we'll add a forever block. We're going to get our code to wait for 5 seconds before it begins. We need a little bit of daylight. We need our farmer to talk. The idea here is that we change the brightness of the screen slowly, making it get darker to mimic going into nighttime. We're going to drop across a repeat block, and we're going to repeat this 8 times. And from the looks menu, we are going to change, now not the color effect. If you drop that down, we're going to do a brightness effect, and we're going to change it by -10. We don't want the 8 repeats of this to happen all at the same time. So let's add in a wait block, but we'll just wait maybe 0.2 seconds so that we can see a difference. If I was to click the green button now, remember it's waiting 5 seconds before it starts, but here we go, we're going to nighttime. Okay, we do need that now to change back to day. Why don't we duplicate these blocks and drop them underneath, but still inside that forever block? We're going to wait 3 seconds after it gets dark. 8 times, it's going to repeat changing the brightness, but we want to change that effect by 10, so it's making it brighter, waiting in between. We also need that day-night to stop if it receives the stop all broadcast. So let's drag across a broadcast when I receive stop all, and we're going to stop all scripts in the sprite. There we have a finished product of your game. Can you play the game so that you get a brilliant crop? If you overwater, it's not going to go well. And if you underwater, it's not. Remember, our farmer told us to keep the water between 1 and 2 for the best results. And keep an eye out for that. Oh no, the rain came and my rain is getting waterlogged. If I was to force it, my water sprite is going to show up on screen. Remember, if you are going to share your project back to us for the competition, you will need to click the share button up here so that your project is live, or you can click File, Save to your computer, and send us through the file. Can't wait to see what you make. I hope you've enjoyed creating this project with me. Let's jump back to Shikira and Matt and see what they're looking for in the judging of this project. Okay, so you have both been invited to be judges for this category at the end of the Moonhack Challenge. So we do encourage everybody to submit their projects back to us. Have you got any things that you'll really look out for that would really get you interested in someone's project at the end?
Well, that's a great question.
Great question.
Because for me being involved with this is sort of new to me. So I'd be really fascinated to see what ideas our students have in terms of using this program to develop something. But I'd like to see how they can improve that water use efficiency on farm. Is there some ideas they can think of how to show how you get better efficiency of use of that water to grow the most sugarcane with the least amount of water but the most effective use of water? That's one thing I'd be interested in see how that might work.
I like it. You might have future cane growers.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the next leaders on how to solve some of the problems that we might have or we might incur down the future. But I'd like to see all the creativity at the end, like with the extension sort of things, you know, what happens next? Some of those sort of things, whether they have knowledge of the industry or not. Just see how they use all the different coding techniques to evolve the or make the project expand. Or
the sugarcane growing doesn't just kind of stop when it's harvest time. It's like the next step in the journey, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So once that cane's harvested, and then it grows again from the roots of that cane there. So you've harvested it, chopped it off, and then it'll sprout new leaves and it'll grow again for the second year. So that's called a ratoon.
Yeah.
So you can do that 5 or 6 times from one planting of one crop. So 5 or 6 years from one crop, you get 5 ratoons in a plant. Maybe that's something they can incorporate into how they do that.
I just want to say good luck, everyone. I hope you enjoy the challenge. It's a really cool project, not just our little project challenge amounts, but the whole lot. The whole Moonhack challenge, I think, is really cool. So get excited about it, get doing the challenges, and we can't wait to see what you all come up with.
Absolutely. Awesome.